If you suffer from addiction, don't let 2025 pass without you getting sober. In this video, I'm going to give you 3 steps to move forward in recovery from addiction so you can start 2025 off strong. A little bit about myself first. I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict of 20 years. For 20 years, I was addicted to one substance or another, and for 7 of the last 20 years of my addiction, I was using hard substances and utterly crippled by my use. Now I'm a year sober, and I'm here to share my story and talk about the nuances of addiction. If you're interested, subscribe for more content on addiction recovery and psychological insight. So the 3 points I want to talk about here are the cost of addiction, the cost of opportunity, and faith to take the first step. I'm going to get into the first point. The first step to take is the cost of addiction, the toll that addiction takes. What I mean by this is the physical, emotional, social, financial, spiritual toll that addiction takes on you as a person, the totality of your being. It's not a light toll. And in contemplating whether I should quit or not, or whether you should quit, counting the cost of addiction should be your first priority, right? When weighing addiction against what the drugs or the alcohol or whatever you're addicted to is currently providing you. Generally, it's providing some kind of reward, some kind of stopgap measure, filling a void of something, giving you temporary pleasure, alleviating pain. Maybe if you're addicted to opiates, it's more of a physical addiction you're dealing with. If you're addicted to stimulants, it's more of a mental, psychological addiction. You're seeking pleasure. Maybe you have some trauma or some pain that you're covering up and you're not dealing with. And when you're sober, when you don't have the drugs and alcohol, all that pain comes rushing up. So you're covering that up with the drugs and alcohol. You got to count the cost of that, right? Because the cost of covering up natural feelings of being a human and being alive, which is going through loss, going through grief, going through turmoil, having ups and downs. You have to deal with that in the proper way. The proper way is to not use drugs and cover it up. The proper way is to deal with it and move on in life. When you're using drugs, you're going to be stuck. If you're not stuck now, maybe you're managing your alcohol use, your drug use. It's going to get to a point where it's going to become unmanageable. And maybe it won't. Maybe you could coast along for a certain amount of time, but you're not going to be operating at your best. So count the cost of addiction, the toll that it's taking on you, and see the opportunity of living a new life in sobriety. Now, that brings me to the second point, or the second step to getting sober in 2025, and that is the cost of opportunity. Now, what I mean by this is counting the cost of a lost opportunity. Now, a lot of us, when we count the costs in life, we generally tend to think in terms of the cost of energy, time, money, or resources, in terms of resource cost, right, to do something. So, well, what's the cost of making a decision? Or what's the cost of going in a certain direction in life or taking action? Counting the cost is generally in terms of the resources. But what we need to shift our thinking to is in terms of opportunity cost. So what's the cost of a lost opportunity? Now, in order to see what the worth of an opportunity is, we have to move forward in our timeline and look back on the opportunity in retrospect, because it's in hindsight that we see the worth of an opportunity. Opportunity is intangible. It's intangible compared to the assets of money, resources, time, etc., right? Because an opportunity, it's theoretical. We can't touch it. We can't really grasp it and say how much it's worth. We can only imagine in our minds how much it's worth. And then further down the timeline of our lives, we can look back on our life and see what the impact of a loss of opportunity means and how much it cost us, right? So the opportunity that you have today and going into 2025, and the opportunity that I have, we all have every day, is to be sober. And to be sober brings the opportunity to live a life, to live a better life, a more fulfilling life, a life where we can seize opportunity, right? Opportunities of relationship, opportunities in business, opportunities to develop ourselves, opportunities to live better. Now, to do that, you need to have faith. Third step here is faith to take the first step into a sober life, having faith that life in sobriety is better than a life in addiction. For me personally, when I was addicted for the last 6 of the 7 years of my severe alcohol and drug addiction, I didn't have faith that life could be better, that I could make a better life for myself in sobriety, that I had what it takes to live on my own and live sober without numbing myself to the realities of life. So for 6 of those 7 years, I tried getting help on my own. I read self-help books. I studied the science of addiction and substance use, substance abuse disorders, misuse disorders, etc. I even tried Stoicism, different philosophies, different religions, different esoteric beliefs, etc. Right? I mean, I tried the whole gamut because I was desperate to get sober, and I could never get sober longer than 8 weeks at a time. And I would go back to using and then feel guilty, get sober for 3-4 weeks, go back to using again because I would feel bored, because I had this void left in me that I wasn't filling with a higher purpose and with something like faith and a higher calling and having a higher goal that I can aim upwards towards, that's more fulfilling and more rewarding than simple daily pleasures of fulfilling instant gratification and gratifying my impulses. So I had to have faith that I could live that life in sobriety and that I can find something to replace the drugs that I was using to fill that void in me, right? I mean, some of us might feel an existential crisis at some point in our lives, and I think that's what I was going through with my alcohol and drug use, and I was using the drugs to give me a sense of purpose, but it was all delusion. It was all delusional bullshit. I had to have faith to take the first step. Now, let's recap the 3 points of this video that I want to convey to you so that you can go into 2025 with a head start to get sober. First, you have to count the cost of addiction. Take an audit of your life. Count the cost of how addiction is affecting you and how your life could be better. Second, count the cost of opportunity. What opportunities have you lost in the past because of drug and alcohol use and your addiction? And what opportunities can you have in the future? Or what opportunities can present themselves in a sober life, right? And then count the cost of the opportunity of living a sober life in 2025. Imagine all that you could accomplish in a year of being sober, and then imagine that to 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. You could accomplish a lot, and that's an opportunity. Third, have faith. Have faith that you can make 2025 a year of sobriety if you want it.